What causes muscle to grow? A quick primer on the science of muscle growth. If you're worried about muscle atrophy or want to know how to lose fat and gain some muscle, listen in. We talk here about the mechanisms of skeletal muscle growth, reasons why women can't gain large amounts of muscle when lifting weights, and cool ways that typical gym guys and girls can improve their muscle building routine. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. Today's it's a fantastic topic that I love to talk about. It's a great opportunity to have you around. I hope you are doing marvelous. I'm doing fantastic, and if you are doing as marvelous as I am, go grab a cup of coffee and say, let's go. I want to quickly give a shout out to some of our viewers and listeners before getting to the nitty gritty. I want to acknowledge Amy Knight in Vincent, Alabama, and I want to acknowledge Frank Butler, Birmingham, Alabama, and Alfie Cook in Montgomery, Alabama. Thank you so much for your support. Really appreciate it. Now, before we talk about muscle growth, let's have an overview of muscles, all right? Now, there are three types of muscles in the human body: cardiac, smooth, and skeletal. Now, cardiac muscle makes up the wall of the heart and is primarily responsible for the forceful contraction of the heart, right? Then you have smooth muscles. They constitute the walls of the intestine, the uterus, blood vessels, and internal muscles of the eye. And then you have the skeletal muscles. Those are the ones attached to the bones and in some areas of the skin, right? I'm talking about muscles in your face. Now, contraction of the skeletal muscles helps limbs and other body parts move. Now, I just want to specify that in this video, we are focusing only on skeletal muscles. Now, skeletal muscles are composed of thread-like myofibrils and sarcomeres that constitute a muscle fiber, and those are basically the primary units of contraction. The human body has 650 skeletal muscles, and those muscles contract when they receive signals from motor neurons, right? And those neurons are triggered they're triggered from a part of the cell called the sarcoplasmic reticulum. Now, motor neurons are very important because they tell your muscles to contract. And so the better you become at having those signals tell your muscles to contract, the stronger you can get, right? So sometimes, when we watch the Olympic Games or, sports event, if you see a power lifter lift very heavy weight despite not looking very muscular, it's because he's able to activate those motor neurons and contract his muscles better. Of course, the same applies for women, but sometimes you see those shows, the world's strongest man, that kind of shows, they are able to activate the motor neurons very effectively to be able to lift weights that are above their 3 times, 4 times their weights, their body weight, right? Another thing you have to understand is that muscle growth tends to occur more steadily after you get the strength. In other words, if you are able to basically activate your motor neurons while pumping the iron, while working out, you are not growing muscles during the gym session. You will basically grow muscles after the session. I'll basically explain this further in the next section. All right, I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We're still continuing our conversation today about what causes muscles to grow. And I want to quickly acknowledge the feedback and contribution of Nicole Carter in Netherlands, Colorado, Clemberg in Castle Rock, Colorado, and Gabriel Walsh in Boulder, Colorado. If you want us to acknowledge your contribution and feedback and everything else, please consider subscribing to our channel. Become a fan today, a listener today. Turn on the notification bell so you can be notified whenever we drop a new show. Like this content, share, comment below. We want to know everything your experience when it comes to muscle growth and so on and so forth. Right now, let's focus on the physiology of muscle growth. Usually, when you work out, after you work out, your body goes into what specialists call anabolic. In other words, your body repairs and replaces damaged muscles through a cellular process whereby it combines muscle fibers together to form new muscles. So you have new muscle protein strands or myofibrils. All right, because as you are actually, when you work out, you are in the catabolic phase. So you're tearing down the muscles, you're tearing them down. But once you rest, your body switches to an anabolic phase. All right, so the repaired myofibrils, they increase in thickness and number to create the muscle hypertrophy. That's what we call muscle growth. So when you see those bodybuilders actually grow, they're growing. Their myofibrils are growing not only in number but also in thickness. So you have more myofibrils that are thick. All right. So muscle growth happens whenever the rate of muscle protein synthesis is greater than the rate of muscle protein breakdown. That makes sense, right? You're growing if you're adding more protein than losing. All right. Now, the thing here is that, as I said earlier, this kind of anabolic processes do not occur while you actually lift the weights. They occur while you rest, right? So the thing is that, how do you actually add muscle to your muscle cells? Now, there is something called satellite cells. Now, satellite cells actually, they act like stem cells for your muscles. When those satellite cells are activated, they will help you. They will help your body, your metabolic processes, contribute more nuclei to the muscle cells, and consequently contribute directly to the growth of myofibrils. Again, the myofibrils are the muscle cells. All right. So for you to grow your muscles, your body has to get adept at activating these satellite cells, right? And this is the major difference between the regular folks like you and I who go to the gym and are just hardly gaining anything, and those genetic freaks that grow massive muscles. So of course, I'm talking about natural ways here. I'm not talking about using drugs and other steroids. I'm just talking about there are people who constantly go to the gym and they're just genetic freaks. All right. Now, in a 2018 study, and we're putting the study actually on screen right now, researchers have found that those who were extreme responders to muscle growth, more than 50% myofiber hypertrophy from an exercise, they had an activation of their satellite cells twice as high as that of modest responders who had 25% growth. Therefore, it seems that the more you can activate those satellite cells, the more you'll be able to grow, right? So now let's just address the next question. How do you activate those satellite cells to increase muscle growth? I'll be right back right after this. Go ahead. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We're still having a conversation about muscle growth, and I'm very, very happy to have this conversation with you. I want to quickly acknowledge some of our viewers and listeners in the United States and Canada, particularly Lauren Jenkins in Dundee, Florida, Morgan Smith in Miami, Florida, and Dylan Kennedy in Tampa, of course, in the beautiful state of Florida. Now, what are the physiological mechanisms that make muscles grow? There are three there are three primary physiological mechanisms that make muscles growth. Now, this is very important because anytime you have growth in muscles, of course, natural muscle growth, you have to understand that this only happens when the body, and in this case, the muscles, are continually being stressed. You have to put more stress on the muscles for the muscles to grow, right? So the stress is a key component involved in the growth of a muscle, because what it does is it disrupts homeostasis within your body. So the stress and subsequent disruption in homeostasis causes the three main mechanisms that I'm just going to talk about now. The first one is muscle tension. So in order to have hypertrophy muscle growth, you have to apply a load of stress greater than what your body or muscles have previously adapted to, right? This is why when you go to the gym, if you want to grow, you have to constantly lift progressively heavier weights, right? You have to constantly add to the weight. If you started with 40 pounds or 50 pounds, after a while you got to go to 60 pounds, then 70 pounds, then 80 pounds, right? Because this additional tension on the muscle helps to cause changes in the chemistry of the muscle, and this allows for growth factors that include mTOR activation and satellite cell activation, right? By putting more pressure and more stress on the muscle, you are activating mTOR and satellite cells, right? Now, the second mechanism here is muscle damage. So first one, muscle tension. Second one, muscle damage, right? So when you work out, when you go to the gym, you probably notice that you have some localized muscle damage after the workout, right? Now, this local muscle tear and wear causes a release of inflammatory molecules and immune system cells that activate satellite cells to jump into action. Remember, the idea here is for you to grow, you got to activate satellite cells. So when you have muscle damage, this consequently triggers a whole host of reactions that end up activating satellite cells, right? So the thing here is that, of course, if you're sore, it's part of the process. Soreness is part of the process, and the body has ways to dramatically reduce the soreness after a while. And most gym goers, most bodybuilders are immune after a while to the soreness. Of course, again, naturally. No need to add any steroids or any sort of pills or drugs, whatever. No, naturally, the body can heal itself. The third physiological mechanism that is part of the muscle growth process is metabolic stress, right? So metabolic stress causes cell swelling around the muscles, and this in turn helps to contribute to muscle growth without necessarily increasing the size of the muscle cells, right? Earlier I was talking about the number of cells, right? So you have thickness and the number of cells. So here, metabolic stress causes this sort of swelling around the muscle. So this type of growth is known as sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. And this is one of the primary ways that people can get the appearance of larger muscle without increases in strength, right? So you have folks who look very nice, they look very strong, but they don't have strength, right? So this is very important to understand that. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We're still having a conversation today around, what causes muscles to growth. What causes muscles to grow, yeah? And this is a quick primer. Today's show is a quick primer on the science of muscle growth. Now, I want to quickly invite those of you who are listening to us to subscribe to our channel, to share, like, comment below, give us your experience about muscle growth, about fitness in general, about bodybuilding. If you are into this kind of business, or if you have such a passion, let us know. I want to quickly acknowledge Anna Jones from Casey, Illinois, Harper Lawson from Aurora, Illinois, and Aaron Ellis from Rockford, Illinois. Thank you so much for supporting us, for your contribution. We're talking about your feedback, your intellectual contribution. We really appreciate that. Now let's have a conversation around hormones and muscle growth, right? Because we really want to know, how do hormones affect muscle growth? Now, hormones, understandably, they constitute another element largely responsible for muscle growth and repair because of their role in regulating what? Satellite cell activity. Hormones have a big impact on the regulation of satellite cell activity. Now here, by hormones, I'm talking about insulin growth factor, IGF-1. In particular, one called MGF, so that's MECO growth factor. So you have IGF and testosterone are the two most vital mechanisms that promote muscle growth. Now, the thing here is that testosterone is the primary hormone that most people think of when working out with weights, right? And that makes sense because testosterone increases protein synthesis, inhibits protein breakdown, and stimulates other anabolic hormones. Now, it also activates satellite cells. Now, the thing here is that the reason why a lot of women can't gain weight even after working out for years is because women have far less testosterone in their body than men, right? So because of that, their growth is kind of limited. Their muscle growth is kind of limited. Now, IGF, on the other end, regulates the amount of muscle mass growth by enhancing protein synthesis. It also facilitates glucose uptakes, and it repartition the uptake of amino acids into skeletal muscles, right? So the thing here is that, and women have a good dose of IGF in their body, all right? So, when it comes to hormones and muscle growth, think about IGF and testosterone. Now, let's quickly talk also about rest and muscle growth. I alluded to it earlier, and I want to reiterate here that if you don't provide your body with proper rest or nutrition, you can actually reverse the anabolic process, and most importantly, put your body into a catabolic or destructive state. This is very important for, of course, I don't need to mention that this is not medical advice or any kind of advice. We're giving you we're giving you general information. Everybody has a specific situation, has a unique body, so you want to consult with your healthcare provider before getting to any kind of physical activity. Here, the thing here is that you need to rest, you need to sleep, you need to eat properly. Otherwise, you destroy your body, right? So you go from anabolic, which is construction, to catabolic, which is destruction, all right? The response of muscle protein metabolism to a resistance exercise lasts about 1 or 2 days. So the interaction, therefore, between protein metabolism and any meals consumed in that period will determine the impact of the diet on muscle growth, all right? Now let's also talk about, now you have to remember one thing that's very important, that your muscles will grow as far as your gender, your age, and your genetics allow it to grow, right? So for instance, as I said earlier, if you're a woman, men have more testosterone than women. So as a woman, you cannot grow, you cannot build bigger and stronger muscles. Of course, you might to a certain extent, right? But genetics and physiology at some point will just block you. All right. Now let's quickly also talk about the pace of muscle growth, right? So, which is the reason why as a human, it's just unlikely. It's just difficult to grow muscles rapidly. Of course, I'm not talking about using steroids and other supplements. I'm talking about natural ways to grow. It's just difficult because muscle hypertrophy takes time. your body needs to get used to it. Your metabolism needs to get used to it. So you have to allow your whole system to get used to it. So it just takes time. And the thing is that if you start going to the gym, you wouldn't see a visible growth for several weeks or months, right? Because again, the thing is that your nervous system has to be able to activate your muscles, and these things really take time. All right. Of course, now if you add to that things like genetics, hormonal output, muscle fiber type and number, cellular cell activation, those things can actually impact the pace of muscle growth. All right. I'll be right back right after this. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back, folks, to another edition of Sweetie Kiwi. We are about to wrap up today's conversation. I want to quickly give a shout out to Mollie Adams in White Forest Beach, that's in Massachusetts, Hayden Mason in Boston, Massachusetts, and Kylie Willis in Worcester, Massachusetts. I want to recap today's conversation, and today we talked about an overview. We gave you an overview of muscles. We discussed the physiology of muscle growth. We also talked about the physiological mechanisms that make muscles grow. So you have muscle tension, muscle damage, and metabolic stress. We covered hormones and muscle growth, rest and muscle growth, and pace of muscle growth. Now, remember though, and this is our call to action of today's show. We like to give a call to action in every show. Remember that genetics is still important, right? You want to train properly. You want to train with high volume and medium intensity. This is very important. Remember that you cannot build big muscles and train for a marathon at the same time. Those are two different things. You cannot be, anabolic, which is, the muscle growth, and catabolic, which is a process you see most often with marathoners, which is why they were very, very skinny. So you cannot do both at the same time, right? Try to have a proper regimen of training. You can train 3 times a week. That will help you. One thing that specialists always say is that you want to push each exercise set to near failure. In other words, failure in this case means that you could not do one more repetition in a set because of exhaustion, right? You want to eat properly, right? Particularly protein, right? Because if you train hard and you don't consume enough protein, you cannot build muscles, because muscles are made up of protein, right? Not of carbs or fat. It's protein, so you need that. Proteins are the building blocks of the human body, so you need that. And one thing you also need to make sure that you need to set reasonable goals, be patient, and monitor your progress. All right. Now, here's today's pro tip before I wrap everything up here. We've talked about a lot of stuff in today's show, but remember this: you want to get plenty of sleep and rest. Research has shown that muscle building, recovery, and repair occur at rest and during sleep. So you want to ensure you get sufficient recovery. Now, failure to do so will considerably delay your muscle building efforts and possibly lead to illness and or injury. Thank you, and I will see you next time. Remember to remain marvelous.